final Sabres trade is for winger Tanner Pearson of Winnipeg. He's also been, like Schenn and Carrick, in the league a long time. The Sabres are not, their average age went significantly up after these last 24 hours. Pearson has been on 6 teams, I think, 4 in the last 4 years: Vancouver, Montreal, Vegas, Winnipeg. This year for Winnipeg, another trade with the Jets. 3 players from the Jets. 7 goals, 13 points in 52 games. Wonder if he's also depth. I got to think, I'll guess that he is. So there it is. 4 players. Incredible. Is it incredible? What's incredible is that all of this has happened. That the Sabres have turned this season around so dramatically that they're adding 4 veterans today, as opposed to, trading them off, which is most years in the last decade and more. Logan Stanley, 6'7" defenseman, 9 goals this year, far and away the most of his career, so that's probably pretty fluky. Luke Schenn, he's old enough for me to probably have his hockey cards. That's back when I was still collecting, before my wife and I moved, before we had kids. Luke Schenn is back, 2000, he played as a teenager for the Leafs, right? 2009-ish. So I should have made him the card of the day, maybe when I get home, if I have it, if I can find one. Not exactly in a frame. Sam Carrick from the Rangers, he's been around a long time, a forward, center. And now Tanner Pearson. The Sabres end up giving up 5 draft picks, a second next year, 4 picks this year, 3rd, 4th, 6th, 7th. They're hosting the draft. At least they still have their first. When they had the Parayko announcement, I thought about, well, do they want to trade? I guess they did. Their first-round pick when you have the draft. I mean, maybe that's a conversation. Maybe it shouldn't be, but it can be. But that didn't end up happening. Jacob Bryson, Isak Rosen go to Winnipeg. What do you think? 803-0550 for your calls. Sam Panayotovich rescheduled to 4:30. Sal Capaccio at 5:30. EJ Radick, NHL Network at 6. Here's Bob with us. Hi, Bob.
How are you doing today?
Okay.
I really like what they did. I feel like they've added some depth, and they didn't really disrupt the top 9 and the forwards, your top 4 defensemen. That's a pretty good young core, and I'd like to see those guys develop. And I think it was Mike Robitaille said this years and years ago on like an Empire broadcast, how much players develop just after 1 year of getting in the playoffs and just that experience of playing at that level. And I think that, you've rewarded these guys with some help, but you haven't disrupted the core. And I think, there's nobody playing better hockey than the Buffalo Sabres, but they're going to have to figure out how to play playoff hockey. And I think that could take a few years to crack. But, I'm really excited about the future here and going to the game tomorrow night. First time in quite a few years I've been to a Sabres game, so I got tickets for that. And really excited to, see what develops here.
Right. Yes. I bet you are. Thanks, Bob. Have fun tomorrow. It's definitely the point about experience is definitely what they were thinking today. And I never thought they were going to disrupt anything by trading, any important, no offense to Bryson, starter away. So I'm not surprised that they didn't, but I appreciate that they didn't. Like you said, the core, right? Last night on Twitter, when stuff was, bubbling around what they might be doing, and then before that, even when you had Parayko, this was trading your most recent first-round pick and then presumably this year's first for him. And as you know, if you were with us on Wednesday, that was, a very much mixed feelings about it, because he's a big name and a big guy. But what does he have left? I talked to Travis Yost yesterday, and Travis thinks the Sabres dodged a bullet by Parayko turning them down. I don't know what he thinks about these players, by the way. The charts aren't so good on a couple of them. But anyway, that's what he thought. I mean, it was a mixed bag of opinions about what was going on with Parayko. And My thought was, and I tweeted this to a friend last night, like, if you know the movie All the President's Men, and you should, by the way, I think the show has sounded older. I mean, that's a classic. Certain movies are old, but it doesn't matter how old they are. The Godfather, you can't, like, oh, this guy's ancient. He's talking about The Godfather. So if you know All the President's Men, there's a moment in the movie where Woodward and Bernstein, exposing the Watergate scandal, slip up, and the White House gets what it wants: a chance to blast them, ridicule the work, and basically claim that all of it's a lie, and all of that kind of thing. And the editor of the Washington Post in the movie says, "F it, let's stand by the boys. There's a big meeting. What do we want to do? Are we going to backpedal? Do we want to retract the story? Anything?" And he's like, "Let's stand by the boys." And that's how I felt last night about the Sabres at one point. Thinking about Parayko, and I'm sorry to go a little bit of a distance there, but it's just me here today. Let's stand by the boys, And I think the point about the value of a playoff experience, the value of a run, makes sense. It's not always necessary, though. And this is where I guess it'll come out in the results if the Sabres win or lose after making moves with a specific goal of bringing in experience, size. All of it's going to be depth. You bring in anybody, it's going to count as depth. But there are a couple of traits that they went for, and everybody would understand it. Size is always, better than not, and experience is always considered better than not. But this season, and your calls are welcome at 803-0550. I won't talk about movies anymore or how people drive. This season has been so reminiscent of 05-06, which is, it's a compliment for one thing. Any season that reminds you of that season is, great news. And one thing about that year was that team did not have playoff experience. This was post-Hasek. I don't know. They probably had, they had Chris Drury, who maybe had been with the Avalanche on a run. I don't even know. It's so long ago. But they didn't have it. Like, they did not have playoff experience. That was a team with a couple of veterans like him and Briere, and then you had this core of players who came up through their system. Vanek, Roy, Miller, all those, Campbell, those guys who came up through Rochester. And there's a long list. That's what that team was. And I think they got a little bit of a short shrift going into the playoffs for not having that one trait. And it didn't hurt them. You want to tell me it did because they lost Game 7 to Doug Waite's team? I don't know. But it really, they went deep. And I think people are different. I think Tage Thompson doesn't have playoff experience. He has a gold medal from the Olympics, from a higher caliber of competition than most, if not all, of the Stanley Cup playoffs. How about that? He also, like Paul mentioned, won gold at the Worlds last year. That's for players who aren't in the playoffs, but it's something. He scored the goal to win the tournament. He's got some experience winning important games. And he was very relevant in the Olympic run, by the way, as you know. So that, Rasmus Dahlin, 8 years, now 9 with the Sabres, no playoffs, tons of world-level international competition. And he's never the reason why they don't win Sweden. The thing about him in his career is more that he doesn't play enough at times for Sweden, I think. I know I've heard that. But I don't think he's necessarily lacking because he hasn't been to the NHL playoffs. He's got tons of competition at the highest level in the world. And, maybe there are other examples of this on this roster. But they don't have the playoff piece, as you said, and they went for it, and it makes sense that they did. I just don't think it always matters. And there are going to be teams in this playoff field that don't have a lot of it either, whether that's Montreal or Detroit, whoever it is. The Islanders, There are teams in here who are relatively new to it. You don't have Florida. You don't have Toronto. You don't have the Rangers. You don't probably have Washington. These are teams that are they're always in the playoffs. So there's a lot of new blood. I'm not worried about it. In 2006, they had to beat Philadelphia in the first round. They were very even with them. Then it turned out they had to beat the best team in the conference, Ottawa, in the second round, and they did it. They did both of those things. And I was not surprised. I mean, it was close. Ottawa kind of outplayed them, but they also beat them in 5. So say what you want. I mean, I wasn't then or now really worried about experience. Look at the run they've had. People say about, at the risk of belaboring this, people say about this time of year now, once you get to March, you'll hear NHL people say it, like they're all playoff games now. They're not, but you have the break, I think, enhances this too. That you have games now that mean a lot in the standings, and they're like almost every day. So I don't know. How different is it? Kekalainen himself said a few different ways that to make a run in the playoffs, he wanted them to be bigger and deeper, and they did that. He accomplished that. I also think, and this is something that I'm not sure really what I can say about it because it's all kind of on the inside and I don't really know what his conversations were like with teams or what Kevin Adams' conversations were like with teams. But the piece about Adams to Kekalainen happening right in line with all of this is incredible. And it's hard to dismiss it as a catalyst in what has happened to the Sabres. I mean, it's circumstantial, maybe. Kekalainen's asked about it. He says coaching, right? He's not going to say it's because of him. Even if he thinks it, he's not going to say it. So it might be circumstantial, largely, or it might be what we all kind of think the story could be, which is that once the Sabres moved on from Adams, there's a certain credibility in Kekalainen that Adams lacked. That's what people were all saying, and it always made sense. I mean, he was here 5+ years with no real success, and I think you could work for him, be a player in that locker room, and really just question how serious an organization this is. I mean, we said that all the time. Non-serious. That's a damning term for a sports team, but the Sabres came off as non-serious. Didn't spend to the cap, didn't make moves in seasons when they had a chance, like the last couple earlier when their flaws were evident. They sat there. And he's the GM. So you make that move and boom, all of this happens. It's hard to dismiss that as a catalyst for this. I started to say, though, on the inside, like, we're listening to Kekalainen. Do you have an opinion about this? We're listening to Kekalainen last hour. And not for the first time, but it hasn't been that often yet. He's still like year 1 here. And he's very easy to listen to and understand and, get and even like, what do you want there? What do I want? I mean, maybe you'd be different. I like it when they tell you stuff. That helps me. That's interesting. I want to know what goes on in the back, and this is any of their doing that is interesting to me. So you want informative, you want a certain level of mutual respect, question answer, and you want the answers to make sense and be believable. And he comes off very strongly in all of this. And look, if you're trying to make trades with your fellow GMs, that's a trait you want. I did always try to stick up for Adams in this area with us when he stopped doing our show before this year started for some reason. I don't know if that was even our decision, but that didn't happen this year. But other years when he would come on once a month or so, I liked those conversations. I thought he was somebody that wanted to tell you really what was going on. He would take a question that was just a little bit off topic. I liked my conversations with him, our conversations with him. But he did get pretty defensive at times. He did kind of lose the plot a couple times. And then, you had the palm trees thing. And whether it was anything personal about him inside or not, and it doesn't have to be. I don't know. They were just not willing to take shots. And, if you're Darlene or one of these stars, it makes sense to think that you would not have everything to give, as damning as that can be about a player, especially when they're making tons of money and the captain. I never saw that in Darlene, but I often wondered what he was thinking. Like, what did I get into here? He can love the city all he wants, but I'm halfway through my career maybe, and I've just accomplished nothing as a teammate, as a player on a team. So that move needed to happen probably like years ago, and it finally did. And it finally was a GM who had been a GM before. And that's something that the Sabres never had. I don't know, maybe John Muckler would count, Scotty Bowman. I mean, decades ago. It was always somebody who was new at it. And I think it's tougher for those guys to establish their own credibility, and when it goes a while without any success, then it can be a real drag, I suppose. So credit to them to Pegula for finally getting there, and look what it has led to. The caller is going to his first game in years and can't wait, and it's against Nashville. Sorry, Nashville. Nashville and Minnesota are the two teams over the years when we talk about attendance. They're the teams we tend to pick on is what it is. Pick on as like, these are these are not marquee games. But I mean, it's a Saturday. Still, like, there's definitely Kekalainen talking about the building. That doesn't sound like spin at all. I can believe that completely. I've been in there, and maybe so have you, when it's like this, and it's the best. And this is when Buffalo, as a hockey market, really shines. And we'll talk to EJ Radick later. I'm excited to talk to him about that. I think some of hockey guests and people over the years that have come and gone, and there just hasn't been a relevant team to discuss. We've just missed that. It's not just going to games when it's still light out. We've missed the getting takes on how hot this market can be when this is happening. And I want to think that at this point, these fans, you are all the way there. I mean, I guess there's still 20 games left, and there can be some question about how good they are, I suppose. But 26-5-2, who does that? You watched the game last night. Every 5 minutes, I thought I was hearing AJ Mileshko or Bob Wischusen make some reference to, this is the best team in the NHL since X. This is how they've become the best team in the NHL since X. Wischusen and Mileshko, by the way, what a combination of names for a booth. What a pair of names. I loved last night. I had a smile on my face the whole game. And they're getting calls, right? Did you think the Norris goal would count? Well, Doan is in the crease, and he turns him on his own to face the goalie, and he makes contact with the goalie. Good goal. How about Malenstein running that guy into the wall right in the back? He turned right at the wrong time for Malenstein, right in the back. 2 minutes. He's gone. He wasn't gone. It was a 2-minute penalty that they killed off. The Penguin coach, you could read his lips. He was just in disbelief. Like, what is going on tonight? That's when you know you're hot. Maybe, honestly, maybe they want one of these new defensemen to be a heavy. That's kind of what they probably will want. And if they had been on the scene for Malkin and Darlene last night, they probably take on Malkin. I'm glad they weren't. I got a 5-minute power play. I scored 4 minutes into it and never looked back. If I get a penalty there on some dumb retaliation thing, then let's not have that. This is better. Nothing escalated. The Sabres walked away. They went on the power play. They scored the winning goal, and that was it. And Malkin left. Good enough for me. I didn't need to see him confronted. It would have been stupid. So, yeah, it's all going so well. Let's get Frank in quickly. Hi, Frank.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike.
What's up?
I just want to touch base with your mentioning what do you think actually changed with this team. And I want to bring up the fact that when we got rid of certain players, like players who thought they were maybe too good to be here and want to be elsewhere, like J.J. Peterka, I mean, when we brought in like Doan, players that were maybe, wanted to get ice time, it just seemed like when we brought those players in, it added a spark to this team. And I don't know when the hooting and hollering started in the locker room, but the culture, it seems like these guys have like a energy about them that, is contagious, and you can see it in their play on the ice.
Yeah, I totally see the same thing. Energy is great word, confidence, belief, all of that. I think players would, to a man, say the same thing. It shows. Thank you, Frank. Next up, Sam Panayotovich. We'll talk a little DJ Moore when we come back. No Bulldog today.